So now coming up this weekend is going to be the UFC Fight Night taking place in Kansas City in front of a crowd with Garry and Carlos Prates headlining the main event. I did see a couple of people commenting and asking the question, is this a pay-per-view? Just to clarify, this is not a pay-per-view, this is a card that you can watch for free. I will admit it is pretty sad now that at this point a lot of people think that if it's not in the Apex you're going to have to pay to watch it. And that's just a really, really sad reality and a really sad situation that we are sitting in right now with the state of the UFC. But no, this is a free card. You can watch it on ESPN, ESPN Plus, wherever it is broadcast in the US. It's a little bit different for me here in New Zealand. I did decide that I was going to make a new video for this card. The main reason is I'm looking forward to the card. I'll be honest, I kind of do just want to talk about it again. And I think I'll talk about it again with BitSam later on in the week in a live stream. But I think this is going to be a good card. The lines have changed a lot, which is another reason for me wanting to talk about this card, because I think that some of the takes, some of the recommendations that I made last week don't hold anymore, but I did predict last week that the lines were going to change in this direction. I think Jaqueline Amorim has gone from minus 300 to minus 650. Pretty expected, I will admit, so if you got in early, then you've done well. And then, of course, also with some fights that I was very skeptical on in the past, I think that my confidence has increased a bit more, so I want to clarify on that. We've got another short notice fight that did change, so I will, if you know, very unfortunately address that new fight, which, oh god, it just makes me sick thinking about it, but we'll get there, unfortunately. And, let's talk about the weekend as well that I just had. 6-2 on the PFL, so that's 75% predictions on PFL. Picked two underdogs that won. Honestly, don't think that the day could have gone much better than that. And then LFA, I will admit, pretty bad. Richie Lewis is a minus 1600 in the main event, lost. So that sucks, I'll be honest. And then, but Cage Warriors, I did sweep the Cage Warriors card. I will admit I only predicted about 70% of that entire card. I was writing the article last night, got really tired at 11 PM and just thought to myself, you know what, this will do. Angelo can't be that upset at me if I don't do the whole card, and I didn't do the whole card, I will admit. I did most of it though, and I did predict every single fight that I put up on the article correctly, and it seems like a lot of the We Want Picks members in the Discord, and by a lot I mean two that tagged me this morning as I was waking up, managed to obviously also sweep the card with their bets because I swept the card with my picks. So if you wanted to sign up, check all of that information out on the We Want Picks website. It is $10 per month, but if you do sign up using my code ARTEM, you get 10% off. Pretty good deal for you for your first month, but if you wanted to sign up for a year, you get 10% off the year. That's just how it works. It's as Angelo loves to say, it's affiliate marketing, and it does support me as well, as you can imagine. That's a 3-minute intro, but as you guys know by now, I do like to talk, and I will admit I'm in a pretty good mood at the moment because I have been I don't know, I've been hitting the gym. I'll be honest, I got a gym membership in the last couple of weeks. I've been every single day except for today. I know you're meant to take rest days. I've learned that now. My muscles are very sore. Today is my rest day. I'll be going back tomorrow. But let's go. Joselyne Edwards fighting Chelsea Chandler. I'm picking Joselyne Edwards. I won't be putting money on Joselyne Edwards. I'm seeing a lot of people putting money on Joselyne Edwards, and it does make me a little bit questionable. Maybe I'm not as confident in Edwards as other people are, but it does just come down to one pretty main thing here. Edwards is going to have a very significant striking advantage in this fight. I don't think you can take that away from her at all. But in the past, her takedown defense has looked pretty bad. Recently, it has gotten a lot better, but it still is a weakness in her game. And the only way Chelsea Chandler is going to possibly win this fight is to get takedowns. And if she gets the takedowns, Joselyne Edwards' get-up game isn't amazing. Maybe if you're sitting there with an Edwards ticket, you could get pretty frustrated at the fact that she can't really get back up once Chelsea Chandler gets on top of her. But if you're picking Edwards, you're picking Edwards to defend the takedowns. That is what I'm doing. I'm picking Edwards to keep the range, defend the takedowns, win the striking. Edwards minus 205 on Tapology. She's minus 300 right now. So as I did just say, people are putting money on Edwards. I know people putting money on Edwards. Personally, don't share that same sort of level of confidence, but this fight is nearly guaranteed to go the distance, and I think that it's a bit of an odd fight to put on in front of a crowd, I will be honest, because I can justify this fight being put on in front of a crowd. Timmy Cuamba taking on Roberto Romero. Romero, of course, coming on short notice, took on David Onama. And I thought he made a pretty good account for himself. You know, I was doing my tape study for that fight when Romero took the fight on short notice, and I picked Onama to knock him out because I wasn't very impressed with Romero's tape. I will be honest. And in that fight, he didn't look like the best fighter in the world, but he did look very gritty. He did look very aggressive. He looked like he came there to, you know, mean some business and he really wanted to win the fight, but he just was a bit of a step behind. In all honesty, this is a similar stylistic matchup to David Onama versus Roberto Romero, because Timmy Cuamba, I do believe that Timmy Cuamba is the more technical striker here. I think that he is actually the better striker here, because I think Cuamba truly is a talented guy. The problem is just from what we've seen so far in his career, and it really sucks for me, just someone sitting in his desk chair predicting the fight, to say this out loud, but he has shown in his career that he just doesn't deal with pressure. He quits. He's a quitter. That's why I picked Lucas Almeida to beat him. That's why I picked Balagioki to beat him. That is why when I was looking into his contender series fight against Mateo Volgul, and I saw him literally give up and just accept defeat against Ivan Tena, I thought that Mateo Volgul would be able to beat him. But Cuamba's boxing is very good. It's very technical. He is a very skillful fighter. It seems like he does lack maybe some potential, like sort of like mental strength or something when he's in the cage. I don't know. But Roberto Romero is definitely the least technical guy here. He is just going to come forward though. And I think that pressure from what we've seen from Timmy Cuamba, unless he's worked on it, is going to slow him down. So I do like Romero to come forward. Honestly, I think Cuamba's a pretty good underdog right now. If he is still an underdog, he is. Roberto Romero is minus 120. But I don't feel amazing about this fight. It's not a confidence pick, but I am picking Roberto Romero to win by decision. And now we have women's strawweights. Women's strawweights finishes. Jaqueline Amorim, all 9 of her wins inside the distance. All 13 of Polyana Viana's wins are inside the distance. In fact, all 13 of Polyana Viana's wins are in the first or the second round. So I think you could make a prediction that this fight won't go the distance, and I think it won't, because I think that Jaqueline Amorim's going to submit Polyana Viana very recently. Of course, you could just look at the recent fights and honestly come to this conclusion. Viana's been submitted by Yasmin Lucindo, and then she got finished by Gillian Robertson on the ground, and in both of those fights, she got taken down. And on her back, oddly enough, being a very good grappler, it looked like she didn't really know what she was doing. And Amorim is a former Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion. We've seen how good she is even in her one loss to Sam Hughes. In the first round, she was putting Sam Hughes in a lot of very tough submission positions. And then since then, it's been a bit of a pretty good dominant performances back to back to back to back for Amorim. Amorim's now been beat up to minus 600, as I did say in the intro. Kind of expected, because this is a fight which I really think she wins. I'm trying to find her odds here and I cannot find them. There she is. She's minus 600 right now on Bet Online. I did expect that to happen. Amorim's a very common parlay piece, and I parlayed Jaqueline Amorim earlier on in the week with Damon Blackshear, and I got Amorim I think at like minus 350, and Damon Blackshear at a similar price tag, I believe. But Amorim's the pick. Amorim by submission's the pick. All 9 wins inside the distance. I think that she's going to get another submission here against Viana. Now, Cameron Saaiman fights against Malcolm Wellmaker. This is definitely a fight of debate, a fight of a lot less debate than I thought, because of my prediction video last week. I did say that this is going to be like the People's Prelims main event, the fight that everyone's talking about, you know, the fight that people are going to disagree on, and they're all going to have their little debates, and then the fight's going to happen, and you know, half the people will be right, half the people will be wrong. I'm not seeing much discourse about this fight at all. So I'm wrong on that. I guess just maybe for me, it's a fight that I see as very 50-50. A fight that I see as very close. And also with someone that actually is a bit of a believer in Malcolm Wellmaker as well. I maybe am a little bit more invested than what a lot of other people are. Or maybe people are just really low on Cameron Saaiman right now, because Simon's a talented guy. He's 24 years old. Hindsight's always 2020, but you know, we have seen him take a couple of losses, a couple of really big steps up in competition. Once again, in hindsight, these guys here that he was beating in the UFC just were nowhere near as good as Christian Rodriguez and Peyton Talbot. But are they as good as Malcolm Wellmaker? And we don't really know that, because this is Wellmaker's debut. He looked fantastic in his Contender Series performance, took on a pure Muay Thai striker, knocked him out on the feet very impressively in just a couple of minutes. And Wellmaker can wrestle as well. He mostly is a very rangy sort of striking guy that uses length very well. He's going to have the height advantage. He's going to have the length advantage, the reach advantage here, of course, against Cameron Saaiman. But the thing is, we don't really know how good Wellmaker's grappling is. And before Saaiman started to take his recent little 2-fight losing streak sort of run, we saw Saaiman implement a lot more grappling. You know, he was forced to grapple against Steven, Obi-Wan, Shinobi the Pillow, Kozlo. Yes, that is his nickname. But then he was able to implement a lot more grappling against Mana Martinez, and then especially a lot of grappling against Terrence Mitchell when he got that win there. So maybe he's going to grapple here. He started out as a grappler, as an amateur. I said on my Contender Series breakdown that Saaiman was a grappler. Everybody disagreed with me. Saaiman's base is in grappling, or at least that's how he grappled in his amateur fights. That's how he fought his amateur fights. But I think that Saaiman is going to mix some takedowns here, but Wellmaker, he's shown that he's pretty good. Admittedly, he hasn't really fought the same level of competition, I don't think, that Saaiman has. But Wellmaker's he's a pretty good talent, and he is a guy that I do think has potential here, and I like his striking quite a lot. I like his power. I think Wellmaker gets it done against Saaiman. I think that also Wellmaker presents a lot of the same sort of threats that Peyton Talbot does. He's just a lot less aggressive on the feet than Talbot is, but Saaiman was landing good boxing combinations in that fight as well. I won't take that away from him. Damon Blackshear fights against Alatangheili. Damon Blackshear is admittedly my most confident pick on the card. I'm very confident Blackshear wins the fight. It's just, can he get the finish? Because I'm more confident that Blackshear beats Alatangheili than I was that Blackshear beats Cody Gibson. But just for some reason, I think that Alatangheili might be a little bit more defensively responsible on the ground. So maybe Blackshear could struggle to find a finish in this matchup. But I'm still going to pick Blackshear to win by sub. There is going to be a size advantage for him here. Alatangheili, I do believe, is the better striker. Maybe that is just me overrating Alatangheili's striking. But I do believe in Alatangheili's striking quite a lot, even though he is a pressure forward grappler that does like to get takedowns and win with top control. However, though, against Damon Blackshear, man, as I said, Blackshear's going to have a massive size advantage. He's huge for this weight class at 135 pounds. I thought Cody Gibson was big for 135. Blackshear was about the same height as Gibson, and he was a lot wider. Once Blackshear gets top control, it's going to be very hard for a lot of these bantamweights to stand up, just because he has got such dominant control. Like the way that he was controlling Gibson with that side control, with that mount, Gibson was gassing himself out to get back up to his feet. That is how much work that you're going to have to put in to avoid him. And even if you take down Blackshear like Cody Gibson did, Blackshear reversed Cody Gibson so many times. So I don't think that you can be that confident in Alatangheili winning this fight with control either. So I think that Blackshear's kind of got this fight. I think that he's going to win. I'm picking him to win by sub. I'm a little bit not as confident as him to win by sub. I will bet on him to win by sub. But I just hope that we can get like a relatively decent price tag in this one here. It looks like everyone's on Blackshear by submission as well. And now Chris Gutierrez fights against John Castaneda. Be interesting to see how the lines have moved for this fight here. Gutierrez is now the slight favorite. John Castaneda is plus 100. I think that makes sense. I am picking John Castaneda. And I did say in my breakdown that I'm surprised that he was the favorite in the matchup. I do think that Gutierrez is like a guy that does deserve to be the favorite in this fight, even if that doesn't make sense. But the reason why I like Castaneda in this fight is because although he might not be as technical as Gutierrez, he definitely is a pretty bad stylistic matchup for Gutierrez. Gutierrez is a guy that likes to fight while backing up, and it doesn't really matter who you are. You can back up Chris Gutierrez. Gutierrez will always be on his bike. He'll always be doing the use of Sellout round 3. And Castaneda's going to make him do that. Castaneda comes forward. He throws his boxing combinations, very much a hook-heavy sort of style of boxer. And he's going to shoot for takedowns as well. Now, Castaneda's takedown attempts aren't super effective, but they're going to have Chris Gutierrez moving backwards, because Chris Gutierrez is a striker. This guy can grapple, of course, but he primarily is a bit of a kickboxer. He's a bit of a flashy sort of guy, not in the sense that he's throwing Wonder Boy wheel kicks, but sort of in the fact that he is very technical, the kind of guy that does like to admire his work on occasion as well. And I think Castaneda's just going to make it dirty. You know, we've seen Castaneda absolutely beat up on Daniel Santos before getting beaten up himself. And then, of course, he did recently lose to Daniel Marcos, but he made that a fight. And I think that now, going in there against Gutierrez, I think a lot of lessons can be learned from that matchup to take over this one. So, like Gutierrez, the public's on Gutierrez, even though he is the dog. And I honestly do believe that does make some sense. And now we get to Evan Alder versus Gage Young. And, it makes me sick. It makes me sick thinking about why this fight has been cancelled, because Hassanzada did not withdraw from the fight. Hassanzada has been arrested. There is a victim in the situation. There is a very young victim in the situation. There is it's just fucking disgusting, man. Like, oh, just Google it. I don't want to. It's just. He's been cut from the UFC and he's been arrested. But God, even Alder would have knocked him out. He would have knocked him out. Now he's taking on Gage Young. Gage Young's a pretty good prospect. He's 24 years old. 24. Former welterweight, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about that. Sorry, my mind is just. It's just like, fuck, what a sick human, man. Like, trying to figure out how to use topology. Former welterweight. He did fight at, well, he fought at 170, 155, 165. He kind of fought around the place, but he is a lightweight. Went in there against the Contender Series fighter Quillan Salkilled. Honestly, on paper, it looks like Quillan Salkilled dominated the matchup, but Gage Young made it pretty fun. You know, that was a fun fight. Quillan Salkilled was able to out-wrestle him pretty soundly, though, which is what Gage Young is best at doing. And Gage Young's boxing's pretty good, but I do think it is a little bit sort of like a reliance on hooks, I guess would be the way. And you can see that Gage Young's cardio isn't amazing as well. He does take on Evan Alder, who I do believe in this case is the better kickboxer out of the two. And Gage Young's going to want to wrestle. And I think that if he can get the takedowns, I think he can find some success. But ultimately, I'm going to pick Evan Alder to win this fight. And I'm going to pick Evan Alder to win this fight using his kickboxing. Let's just move on. Please, let's move on. Matt Schnell taking on Jimmy Flick. Matt Schnell is the pick. I think Matt Schnell knocks out Jimmy Flick. This could be like the most degenerate thing that I've ever said in my entire life. But I'm going to put money on it. I can feel like you kind of just have to, you know? You're never going to have another opportunity to bet on Matt Schnell versus Jimmy Flick. Like, Matt Schnell's come out of retirement for this fight, you know what I mean? And Jimmy Flick's Jimmy Flick. I think, genuinely, if you look at Matt Schnell's career, yes, this guy has absolutely no chin whatsoever. But it's against the best guys. You know, Matt Schnell's knockout losses come to guys that are either contenders, either former contenders, or even the champion. You know, this guy got knocked out by Alejandro Pantoja. Wow, big deal. He got knocked out by Rob Font. Wow, big deal. You know, he got knocked out by Mateus Nicolau. He got knocked out by Steve Erceg. Steve Erceg got a title shot off that fight. And I thought even against Cody Durden, I thought Matt Schnell looked okay in that first round. You know, he was having to back up a lot because Durden does like to shoot for takedowns, a lot of pressure heavy sort of style. And Matt Schnell's boxing looked pretty crisp. I thought he was landing quite a few good shots. And I think that Jimmy Flick is like a worse version of Cody Durden. Now, I do understand they are completely different fighters. Jimmy Flick's like a pure grappler. The wrestling's not incredible. But man, the striking just does not exist. It really doesn't. I think as long as Matt Schnell keeps this fight on the feet, Matt Schnell's going to be primed to land some good shots. You know, Matt Schnell does use his range pretty well. Uses his length pretty well at 125 pounds. 5'8", 70-inch reach. I think he's just going to be able to hit Jimmy Flick, and I think he might even be able to knock out Jimmy Flick in this matchup. So I'm picking Matt Schnell, probably the most degenerate thing I've ever done in my entire life, but I will put money on it because I think it will be a very fun experience. Now, Ikram Aliskerov fights against Andre Muniz. I'm picking Ikram Aliskerov minus 650. It's a bit crazy. It's a bit silly. I'm personally priced out of this fight. I think Ikram Aliskerov wins by knockout, but I believe the Ikram Aliskerov by knockout prop's probably going to be, well, it's definitely going to be like less than plus money. So what is the point? Honestly, it comes down to this: Andre Muniz is a grappler. His striking's not very good, and his wrestling's not very good, but his BJJ is absolutely fantastic. Ikram Aliskerov in the UFC so far, admittedly against much lesser, lower level competition, has shown that he's got very good takedown defense and his striking is pretty good. Now, he did get hurt and boxed up by Robert Whittaker. He took that fight on short notice. I don't think that we can really look into that fight like super like heaps unless we're looking at like a Robert Whittaker rematch, or at least someone that fights similar to Robert Whittaker. Like maybe if Aliskerov was to fight against Marvin Vettori or something along those lines. But I think, yeah, in this matchup against Muniz, he's going to have the striking advantage. He should be able to defend the takedowns. Aliskerov, to me, doesn't really seem like the kind of guy that chases getting his own takedowns either. So I think as long as this fight's on the feet, I think it's an Aliskerov sort of opportunity for him to look good and maybe find the knockouts. I'm picking Aliskerov to win by KO. I'm priced out of this fight. I don't want to put Aliskerov in a parlay at minus 650. I would genuinely rather put Jaqueline and Amorim in, to be honest. Now we have Randy Brown fighting against Nicolas Dalby. Interested to see how the line looks right now. It's minus 225 for Randy Brown. And money's coming in on Brown. I do understand why, but at the same time, like, genuinely, this is still the same situation as I was in last week. I do know that my confidence in some fighters has changed, but for Randy Brown, you know, Nicolas Dalby doesn't suck. That's the thing that's kind of getting me here, that a lot of people are just completely writing off Nicolas Dalby in this matchup, and it doesn't really make all that much sense to me. Nicolas Dalby is going to shoot for takedowns. He does have a karate base. He's pretty sound on the feet himself, and he's going to be pressuring forward. Randy Brown is going to do what Randy Brown does every single fight. He's going to fight behind his jab. He's going to fight behind his teep kicks. He's going to fight behind his body kicks, his leg kicks. And he's going to probably be the guy that is moving backwards in this matchup, because that's just kind of the way that Randy Brown fights. He is a somewhat low volume striker that does have some power. There's got a lot of power, I should say, in his straight punches. But I think against Nicolas Dalby, you know, Dalby's still going to make it, I guess. What does Angelo call it? He calls it a slug fight, or does he call it a slugfest? I think he calls it a slug fight. Dalby's going to do that in this matchup. He's going to come forward. He's going to probably be annoying to Randy Brown's sort of style. And personally, again, I don't feel super confident just loading up on Randy Brown in this matchup. Randy Brown's a very talented fighter. He's a good fighter. I think he's looked good in similar stylistic matchups in the past. As absolutely diabolical and crazy as it sounds to make this comparison. I mean, Brown, you know, looked pretty good against Chaos Williams. He did get hurt in that fight, but he was able to outstrike him. Maybe he can do that here against Dalby. That was probably the most diabolical fight comparison I've ever made. But if you know, you know. Like, it's kind of like a similar stylistic sort of fight, not like a power fight. You know what I mean? Now, Michel Pereira fights against Abus Magomedov. My confidence in Pereira has actually increased in the time period. Now, last week it was fresh on the mind that Jacob from We Want Picks potentially would have ruined his marriage, and although I never said it out loud, I was thinking it, you know, because we did see with Hayley Cowan how things going on in the background of your life, as absolutely disgusting as they are, again, all allegations though, affects you. And Hayley Cowan lost inside the distance, and now Michel Pereira, I don't know, like Jacob went on a rampage, I guess, potentially, but I like Michel Pereira in this fight. He's going to be the faster fighter out of the two. There's no question about that. Abus Magomedov, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Talented fighter. I've never denied Abus Magomedov talent. He's a very technical striker at 185 pounds. You don't see this level of technique at 185 all that often. Just watch the PFL card on Friday night. Like, there are some guys that would be top 15 middleweights fighting on that card, and they look terrible. But that's just middleweight. That's just the entire weight class. And Abus Magomedov, I think he looks like a guy with a lot of talent. His kickboxing's pretty technical. He's got wrestling. He's got grappling. We just saw him submit Bruno Ferreira, who is like another guy at 185 that if you put him at 155, he wouldn't even sniff the top 30. But I mean, that's just where we are at 185 pounds. It's just an absolute dead zone of athletes. But Michel Pereira and Abus Magomedov, good athletes. I think that Michel Pereira is just faster, and we've seen Michel Pereira. I mean, we even saw in his last fight against Anthony Smith. Yes, he gassed out in 3 minutes, but he was absolutely destroying Anthony Smith in that first 3 minutes. I think that he can do that against Abus. I'm picking Michel Pereira. I'm picking Pereira by first round finish. I think he gets it done against Abus. And what are the odds looking like? Because I know people are loading up on Pereira. Minus 155. I think if you're picking Pereira by finish. You really are. Maybe Abus lock. If you know, you know. Can get it done in the late rounds like he did against Bruno. But Abus as well. His cardio hasn't really looked incredible throughout his career either. Giga Chikadze fights against David Onama here. I'm still on the underdog. I'm still picking Giga Chikadze here, plus 155 right now. So a little bit of extra money coming in on David Onama to move the lines, but not all that much. And I think my reasoning for picking Giga Chikadze last week is the same as my reasoning for picking him this week. You know, it's going to come down to the leg kicks, in my opinion here. David Onama, as I have said, and maybe you disagree, maybe you agree, I genuinely believe that David Onama's striking looks pretty awkward. You know, I think that in moments he does kind of get caught off balance. I think that in moments he does look like an imperfect fighter, and I'm not saying that Giga Chikadze's perfect. I'm just saying that Giga Chikadze, I think, is a lot more smooth and technical with his strikes. And I think that Giga Chikadze, the way that he throws his leg kicks, because that's all he does is throw kicks, is going to catch up to David Onama. The thing about David Onama, though, that you cannot take away from him is that he does have very good power, and that he does have very good accuracy. And the thing about Onama that I think I did completely discredit last week, that I do want to address in this one, is I said that David Onama isn't a nightmare stylistic matchup for Giga Chikadze, because he's not. Giga Chikadze's nightmare stylistic matchup for him is the guys that he's lost to in the past. Like Calvin Kattar, when Calvin Kattar was boxing him up and trying to take him down, and then Arnold Allen. Arnold Allen was just boxing him up because Arnold Allen's a good boxer. Onama's capable of doing that boxing as well. And I do apologize for not fully making that clear, because Onama, I did mention this example, but Onama boxed up Gabriel Benitez, and this is one of the better knockout wins I think that I've seen in a long time, mainly due... That's not one of the best ones, but it's an impressive one, and the reason why I say it's impressive, it's because of how we did it. He threw like a 6-punch combination, and all 6 punches or so landed on Gabriel Benitez. It was an amazing combination that he was able to get going. And then after that, he did have the uppercut win in the clinch against Gabriel Santos. I just like to eliminate this one from my mind, because the celebration afterwards, it gave me some very, very dark thoughts, I'll say. I was not in a good place after that, because I was just... Why would you do that? It's just so cringe. But anyway, Giga Chikadze, I think you can get on his bike here, and just kind of kick the legs of Onama. I think once you kick the legs of David Onama, I think that's when you can take away some power as well. Kicking the body is going to be very, very important for Chikadze to work on in this matchup, because David Onama's cardio has looked bad in the past. Now, it was a few years ago now when David Onama became the first Nate the Train victim, but the cardio's looked bad in the past. It is something to be somewhat concerned about, but I do think in this matchup, Chikadze is going to get the kicks going, he's going to kick the legs, he's going to kick the body, and I think he's going to win as an underdog, as an unk, now at this point in his career. I'm picking Chikadze. The public's on Chikadze on the Tapology votes anyway. Seems like the money's on Onama though, so maybe that tells us something different, but I'm picking Chikadze by decision. Anthony Smith versus Mingyang Zhang. I'll be honest, I'm kind of getting out of my Anthony Smith delusion here. But I'm still going to make it pretty obvious. I'm picking Mingyang Zhang by KO. Mingyang Zhang last week on the We Want Picks website is a top 5 confident pick for me. He's one of my top 5 most confident picks on the card. And I'm pretty confident in this card in general. Like, there is a lot of fighters on this card that I'm very confident are going to take the victory. And Mingyang Zhang's in the top 5. But I said, I think minus 530 is a trap line. Because I do think it's a trap line. I still believe that. Anthony Smith, just to win, is paying out $5 right now, plus 400. You put $10 on Anthony Smith and he wins, you get 50 back. It's not a bad deal. It's not a bad deal. Now, of course I think it's Mingyang Zhang first round KO. Of course I think that. I said that in my first video. But I did say, I justified trying to pick Anthony Smith here, because I think that he's a nightmare matchup. I have never seen Mingyang Zhang grapple. I've never seen him wrestle. I've never seen him grapple. I've never seen him wrestle in the UFC. I've never seen him wrestle outside of the UFC. Now, Bitsam was telling me Mingyang Zhang's got a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. A blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I don't really know how the belt rankings work, but I know it's less than like purple, brown, and black, right? So that's not really like an amazing belt to have in BJJ. And Anthony Smith, I mean, I don't know if he's a black belt, but I know he's a good grappler in MMA anyways. I don't know. I don't think that blue belt in BJJ Bitsam is that amazing. You know, I held a belt in kickboxing. A lot of people say there's no belts in kickboxing. They don't exist. They kind of do. It's a gym by gym basis. you know, like I kickbox under WAKO, and WAKO is like a pretty common sort of. I mean, Shauna Bannon's the world champion of WAKO kickboxing, or she was. You know, that's kind of like a claim to fame, I guess, in the world of MMA. But also, WAKO kickboxing champion just knocked out Clay Collard and Alfie Davis as well. So that's pretty sick. I haven't kickboxed in a long time though. It was something that I did. Why? How did I make this about me? How did I make this about me? Anyway, I kickboxed for many years and I did boxing, which I think a lot of people know about by now. But anyway, Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith, he's the pick. No, he's not the pick. He's not the pick. Anthony Smith, he's got a chance to win. I've gone off the rails. I've gone off the rails. I've been thinking about Angelo's illegitimate son, Bitsam, for too long. Now we move up. Ian Garry versus Carlos Prates in the main event. Another underdog pick, of course. My second underdog pick of the card. Bitsam's underdog opportunity. I don't know if he's going to be Jacob's lock of the week, but Carlos Prates is paying $2.10 right now to win, plus 110. I'm sounding like Bitsam, because Bitsam uses decimal odds. And even though I live in New Zealand and I use decimal odds on my sportsbook, I prefer to talk in American odds because it just makes sense to me now. I've covered MMA on YouTube for 4 years, 3.5 years now, I think. So I've just gotten used to the American odds system. I prefer to bet with the decimal odds system because it's just basic multiplication, but the way to talk with the American odds system makes sense to me. But anyway, Carlos Prates is the underdog. I'm picking Carlos Prates to win the fight. I don't think you guys want to have another Carlos Prates career history lesson, but I will say this. Bitsam told me he modeled his takedown defense over Israel Adesanya, and as much as Israel Adesanya is not my favorite fighter in the world, out of all of the kickboxers that have transitioned into the UFC, Israel Adesanya's takedown defense is definitely up there as some of the greatest of all time, so that makes sense. And in this matchup, I think Ian Garry is going to grapple. Now, when I said that Ian Garry is going to grapple, I think some people thought that meant that I think that Ian Garry's got no chance on the feet against Carlos Prates. I don't mean that. Carlos Prates is a good fighter. Ian Garry's a good striker, and I think that he could hold his own against Prates. But the thing about Prates is his timing's just so good. You know, we saw this against Neil Magny. We saw this at the beginning of the finishing sequence against Li Jingliang. We saw this even in the counter strike that put out, wasn't even counter strike, just like a straight left from the southpaw stance, so a cross that knocked out Trevin Giles. It's just the timing for Prates. It's everything. And we have seen Prates get backed up a little bit. Mitch Ramirez was finding some success against Prates in his Contender Series fight, and Ramirez did take that fight on short notice. But I don't know. Like Ian Garry, I think he's going to, the way that Ian Garry strikes is from range. And I think that's good for Prates. You know, I think to beat Prates, like genuinely, I could see Prates losing to someone with a boxing sort of style. I guess maybe like on the lower sort of level, like I don't say this to disrespect him, but like Jeff Neal, I think would have a very good chance of beating Carlos Prates. And then I think Jack Della Maddalena is almost like a Carlos Prates nightmare sort of matchup. You know what I mean? Aside from maybe Bilal Muhammad actually with the wrestling, but that's beside the point. I think Ian Garry's striking style against Prates is like a good striking style for Prates to need to deal with. And I think that Prates can find his shots from range. We've seen Ian Garry hurt before as well. Of course, the GOAT, Song Kanan, knocked down Ian Garry in that fight. And then we've seen Ian Garry implement a lot of grappling recently. You know, we can speak about him. Jeff Neal, I was just talking about him. Ian Garry implemented some grappling in that fight. He implemented a lot of grappling against MVP, and then he implemented some grappling against Shavkat as well. And I think a lot of people seem to believe that I did not watch the Shavkat versus Ian Garry fight. I have seen this fight. Yes, I am more than aware that Ian Garry had a choke in the 5th round against Shavkat Rakhmonov. In fact, I mentioned that in last week's video. But I also think that Shavkat was finding a surprising amount of success against Garry in the striking as well, to be honest. And I think that Carlos Prates can kind of do the same, except with like a nearly opposite sort of striking style. Shavkat is very dynamic. He does have spinning kicks in his arsenal because he's just an absolute freak of nature. But Carlos Prates, I think, like he's a lot more basic. You know what he's gonna do. He's gonna throw his kicks up the middle, but he's also gonna throw a lot of straight shots, and that's not really Shavkat's striking game. Shavkat likes to throw a lot of looping stuff. Carlos is right down the middle, and I think he's going to end up landing something on Ian Garry's little head. So I'm going to pick Carlos Prates to win this matchup, and I'm going to pick him to win by knockout. I've been impressed by him so far. The takedown defense, I will admit, it's still a question mark. I know he defended what, like 7 for 7 takedowns against Neil Magny, something absolutely insane like that. But I don't know. I still question the takedown defense of Prates. I do, but we'll see how it looks against Garry, because Garry's like offensive wrestling. I know that he was able to take down MVP, and MVP's takedown defense is good. We've seen MVP's takedown defense look good in Bellator against that guy, which he lost split decision to. What's his name? But I think in Garry does lose to Prates this weekend. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Yeah, that's my predictions. I realized I don't know. I started thinking about Angelo's illegitimate son, bit Sam quite a lot there, and then I went off the rails in the co-main and the main. But I think it's still like a watchable video. Hopefully, I'll see you guys in the next one, which will be the PFL. I'll break down the PFL over the next few days and then record a video and upload it in the middle of the week, like I did last week. Yeah, that's kind of it. If you haven't already, please subscribe. I think I'm nearly close to 9,000 subs. I admittedly don't ask for subscriptions much, and I don't even really check the sub count on my channel all that much either, but I realize we're pretty close to a milestone, so hopefully we can hit that soon enough. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.